Hello everyone and welcome to Avantika Designeering Series or ADS as we like to call it. Every week on Wednesday, we feature design and technology leaders who share their professional journey, their thoughts on their domain of work, and designeering where the world of design and engineering meet. Make sure you follow us on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter. And with that, let's continue with your show.
Advertising has been the epitome of creating awareness since the start. From starting creative, emotional, and memorable campaigns with unique jingles to businesses now getting into the feeds of social media, the dynamics have changed completely. With the changing mediums, advertising has been shaping up very differently over the years and will indeed continue to do so. Does advertising hold the same meaning to people, or is it taking a new form altogether of its own? In this episode, we interact with Ambareesh Chakraborty, Senior Partner and Executive Creative Director at Swamy BBDO. He has created campaigns across media that span the range from automobiles to newspapers, from banks to soaps. As a creative leader, he has repeatedly demonstrated his skills at building strong brands through breakthrough ideas, insightful creative strategies, and engaging brand stories. So let's get into conversation with him on Get Wise to Advertise and Turn, another stone in our journey of discovering designeering. Hello, Amrish. Welcome to Avantika Designeering podcast series. It's a pleasure to host you on our show.
Thank you, Rohit, for the kind invitation. Looking forward to this session.
So, Amrish, let's start with the icebreaker. If you talk about an advertising agency, it always has this vibrant culture and working environment. How do you ensure that this vibrant culture is maintained while we work from home?
Yes, I mean, working from home, does put a physical distance between team members. But if the quality of your interactions already has a certain tone and tenor, then it is much easier. So, yes, we do regular conference calls, even video calls, so we can see each other. And, the banter that goes on, basically. But yeah, yes, and when we do go in, like we do go in, say sometimes say once or twice a week, then we try and go in together as a team. So that's how we've kept this going.
Wow, well said, Amrish. I'm sure that all of us are going through this challenging situation and adjusting out of our homes, working out of our homes. I'm sure that we are discovering, all of us are discovering this new normal. So, Amrish, it's been 11 long years since you've been part of RK Swamy BBDO. You won several awards for campaigns across media. What's been your journey from Ogilvy and Mathers to RK Swamy BBDO? Can you share with us your professional journey?
I was in school when I knew that I wanted to be in advertising. So uh, I then got into the National Institute of Design, NID in Ahmedabad, and that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. After that, I applied for an internship at Ogilvy and Mather, and that was a great experience too. Then, at the end of which, Piyush Pandey offered me a job, and I started at Ogilvy. I was there for 10 years, and there were a lot of great creative people there, and I learned a lot. At the end of 10 years, Piyush made me, uh, you know, consider an assignment in Sri Lanka. So I went there as as the head of creative. That was another great experience, great learning, and I also spent some time in Ogilvy One, which was the direct and interactive division of Ogilvy, and prior to going to Sri Lanka. So from there, then after my time in Sri Lanka, I joined TBWA in Mumbai, and after that, I joined Swamy BBDO. And in Swamy BBDO, I've had the opportunity to work on some great brands, and here I am.
Wow, interesting. So what, you just mentioned that from your school days, you wanted to be a part of the advertising agency. How did you discover that? I mean, how did you discover where does your calling lie?
Well, I had read this book, Ogilvy on Advertising, which was something fascinating for me, and that's where I think my interest was sparked. And I'd written a few ads myself, so that's how it began actually.
Interesting. There are very few individuals who discover their calling quite early, and glad that you had that clarity right since start. So, Amrish, some of your amazing work for Hindustan Times has been showcased thrice in Loser's Archive, the cult magazine that showcases only the most outstanding creative ads from around the world. Tell us more about that.
Yes, I think it is. Hindustan Times was a great client, and they were very keen to do some great work. And they launched a new weekend supplement called HT 48 Hours. And for this, and it was such rich content that actually we wanted to do justice to that. So one of my colleagues told me about this young illustrator who's still in the final year of college, but who's brilliant and who's got the gold medal for illustration. So of course, I mean, while we did have a budget issue, I definitely was on the lookout for some new talent who would give us a fresh angle into things. So the name of this guy was Pavan Rajurkar, who is an outstanding talent. And so we called Pavan, and we tried to get some stuff out of him, and it was all very nice. But at one point, I told Pavan that, look, Pavan, let's not refer to the stock books of illustrators. Let's create something totally new. So he said, okay, give me an example. I said that, well, just imagine the temple murals of Kerala. What if you had to interpret them today? So Pawan came out with a brilliant series of illustrations, which we used to capture the richness of the content of HT 48 Hours. And yes, it was selected to be in the Lutzer's archive. And the other campaign was, of course, for saving forest corridors, which are so critical to tiger conservation. So the idea there was that, we took the folk styles of illustration, and the tiger is very well represented in them. But say, like, if it was a Mughal painting, then there will also be another tiger which was painted in, say, Madhubani style. So basically, the line went, tigers of various regions need to migrate to survive, save India's forest corridors. So that was very well appreciated too. Uh, we won awards for these, and also it was featured in the Lutzer's archive. So these were some of the things that we did that were really great fun.
Hey, did you know the hugely successful online campaign hashtag Go Viral to Stop the Virus began in India in April 2020 among the advertising fraternity? The campaign is a one of a kind as it is not owned by any agency or brand. It began positive viral creatives that were created by advertising professionals from almost 19 agencies, including RK Swamy BBDO. Wow, interesting. So, Amrish, while researching about you, you work with so many successful brands and campaigns for Hot Wheels, Asian Paints, UNICEF, Mercedes, AMW trucks, and the list just goes on. The question that I have is which one of these, apart from Hindustan Times, of course, is your favorite campaign and why?
Actually, it's like, it's very difficult to say so, because as creators, we love all our children. And but I must say that when anything good comes out, the credit does go to the client. And I've been fortunate to have worked with some great clients at Hindustan Times. Nitin Chaudhary, Shantanu Bhanja, Tarun Khanna. They really commissioned some great work. Mercedes Benz, of course, Santosh Iyer was a great fun doing that campaign. And when I was in Sri Lanka, Cargill's rice, I was very happy with that work. That's another, rice consumption had started to go down in Sri Lanka, which is a predominantly rice eating country because of Western dietary habits that were being adopted by the people. So to do a campaign for Cargill's rice was very interesting. So these are some of the things. Then, of course, News First in Sri Lanka. There's a great client there again, Kili Raja Mahendran. So, the owner of Sirasa TV and News First. These were some great clients. And of course, it's all teamwork. So there were great colleagues of mine too, both in terms of account management and creative for all of these. So it was great fun doing these campaigns.
Interesting. I'm sure that when you have a client around with a lot of clarity in terms of what is the goal that they want to achieve, and when they collaborate with you more than a client, vendor relationship, than into something which is a beautiful partnership where they collaborate and work together, I'm sure the output is always beautiful. Amrish, that brings me to my next question, which is marketing is brand building and not advertising. From a customer's perspective, this allows the model to change from being a monologue to a dialogue. What's your view on changing of this approach?
Yes, this approach is significant in the sense that, you know, uh, truthfulness and authenticity are going to become very, very important. One has to be transparent. A brand has to be totally honest, and this is all, for the good. That's what has changed actually with all these that you're mentioning. So brands have to be more skilled when you negotiate a dialogue, and your actions have to be more sincere. In fact, there's no room for doing anything wishy-washy anymore, and the consumer wins here. The people win here.
I'm sure that all stakeholders coming together and trying to keep the customer at the center of all the communication, and that's more of a win-win situation where all sorts of stakeholders benefit in that ecosystem. So, Amrish, brands usually connect with consumers at the emotional level, typically through a story told via television led advertising campaigns. The most iconic brands over time mastered the art of brand strategy. The question that I have is, how does a communication expert flesh out the soul of a brand?
Yeah. So uh, that's a good question because it's very, very similar to how, say, the people who we look towards as icons, how do they capture the essence of anything? So there are various ways of doing this, and many agencies have their own tools. uh, and these tools are, sometimes based on the work of cultural anthropologists such as Hofstede or, say, Desmond Morris, etc., etc. And they allow you to capture all the layers in connection with the brand, the people consuming the brand, and all the stakeholders in the entire cycle. But yes, someone needs to write it. So this would be again, a co-creation of sorts between the writer, account management, the planner, and there is of course also a very important space for instinct here. In fact, some of the great creative directors have very strong instincts as to how this should be, and it's like a manifesto, you know a brand manifesto or a brand print. It's like how you see them for political parties, but of course a lot more imagination, and it requires empathy, sensitivity, and some flair to capture this.
In fact, when we keep talking about advertising, it's often perceived as one thing that we can't wait to skip or block. The consumers want to seek out and not scream out. The question that I have as a follow on, Amrish, is do you think the advertisement is a death door what is the future of television, media, or other types of advertisements, especially when these new form of digital mediums tools are being introduced. In fact, now recently I was reading about how branded films and films are getting created around a brand, something that BMW did quite a few years ago. So what do you think? Where is this leading as far as advertising world is concerned?
Yes, definitely. I mean, advertising has definitely moved from, an interruption to participation, you know. So, like how a little child used to, keep screaming till they got attention. The same way sometimes old ads took that approach, but no longer. Today, you have to charm and interest the people into participating in what you want to tell them and what you want to share with them. And in fact, at its best, advertising is something that's looked forward to by the people. And that's where we should aim to be. Yes, I mean, branded content is where it's at. And while it's not a new concept, it has evolved into something great with the BMW films, as you mentioned. And also, another trend is at one end, you have those long form creatives, and at the other end, you also have a lot of brevity. The distillation of the message into 5 seconds, 10 seconds. It is something which is almost like the posterization of films.
Did you know Mr. R.K. Swamy was the founder chairman of the Chennai based advertising agency R.K. Swamy BBDO? He was involved in making Madras an important location for the advertising industry. In 2009, the All India Management Association established the AIMA R.K. Swamy High Performance Brand Award in his honor. Absolutely. In fact, we are going to be recording an episode with the leader at Diageo, and while researching these questions, I also came across how Diageo is actually using the brand to actually create a branded film and content around it. So yeah, I'm sure that it's a trend which is going to grow for sure. So, from the world of brands and advertisement, let's get into talking a little bit on the design front of it. So, we can all acknowledge the fact that the internet has changed everything, including the role of graphic designers. Growing professions such as digital marketing, user interface, user experience has become essential components to a successful design strategy. The question that I have is, outside of the most fundamental design principles and the branding spectrum, what role does graphic design play now?
Yes, so if you look at the impact of technology on graphic design, it has been significant. And graphic design, in many ways, is one of the oldest of professions. And technology has also put the power to create these pieces into the hands of the lay public. So, yes, it's been democratized, so to speak. But there is always a place for skillful use of graphic design. What technology has done is that the time spent on crafting has been reduced considerably. This allows designers to focus on the concept, on the idea, on form and function. You know? These are very important conceptual parts of any design, which will now get a lot more attention, and this is what will differentiate the work more and more. So it is, something like you can even take forward a brand conversation. Graphic design is a tool of advertising. So, say for example, if you take the paper boat packaging, you know, at the bottom, if you turn the pack over, you will find some lines. They're just chatty, they're cool. That's part of the brand because paper boat is about nostalgia and about your childhood conversations. So when you turn the pack upside down, you'll have lines like, "Congrats, you just passed the curiosity test." You know, so it even a pack is a point at which you can have a conversation with your consumer, with the people who buy your products. So, yes, I think it will free up more focus for conceptual work, which is great.
Wow, that's an interesting trivia about paperboard. I didn't know this. So next time I'm going to pick up one, I think I'm going to first turn it around and see what is it that it says, and then probably consume it. I think
It's
that
different every time, on every pack. Many of them, they have several messages going on at the same time. So it just, creates a very chatty vibe, which goes with the personality of the brand.
absolutely. In fact, the entire brand campaigns that they've had, whether it was the summer vacation, whether it is about the Children's Day campaign, all of them are so beautifully done by them. So moving from the design part of it, within this is a very interesting aspect that's growing nowadays is the personalization aspect. It's become a norm today, and technology is assisting that in a seamless way for certain products. But for a designer like you, if you were to change the brand elements like its colors, interface, logo, as per individual preferences, how will a brand continue to maintain its core value? What's your view on this?
Yeah, my view is that, there are great rewards for consistency in branding. So often you will see, evolutionary changes that keep refining the design and keeping it contemporary, keeping it in tune with the people who buy it. Revolutionary designs where you totally change things uh, are not, to be used too frequently unless there's a very good reason. Like, say, for example, a totally different set of people buying it, or if your business model changes. So yes, there are great rewards for consistency in design. uh, there are also some categories, perhaps, in which what you're saying, where people could personalize and change things around, like whether it's fashion or something like that, it is perhaps possible. But otherwise, consistency, is something that pays off very well in the long run.
Amrish, while you were speaking about consistency, an example that comes to my mind is that of Uber. Uber, in 9 years of its existence, has changed its branding 5 times. Branding changes are time consuming, they are expensive, especially at scale. And at the same time, every stage of a company growth, it requires a new identity as it grows. The faster it is required to redesign it. What's your view on it?
Yes, I mean, this was a category where the business model itself changed. And that's often a factor in change of design. The business model changed, and it's different from, say, FMCG, where, say, someone might want some excitement around the brand, some tweaks that can be spoken of. In this case, I think they wanted to make it more mass. It started off as an elite service, something better than an ordinary cab. And then I think it went into going into more of a mass market thing. So, and in any case, so therefore, while design is an iterative process, I think here they wanted to reflect their changing business models going forward. Also, they had a different. Again, we were talking about a brand print. Their whole business goal became different. I think they were earlier about transportation, and then now I think their mission is to something about ignite opportunity by setting things in motion. So that means that they could extend their brand to things like, say, maybe Uber Eats, etc. So I think there was a reason why Uber did it, and I think that that font also, if you look at it, is almost like a fashion font, like avant-garde, classic typeface, which has been modified a bit to which looks similar to what Uber has done. So I think it's about making it cool as well and more mass. So perhaps that's why they did it.
So while we speak about Uber, a technology company, let's enter into the world of technology and your work. Marshall McLuhan is considered a well respected philosopher of communications theory who is known for his metaphors, such as the medium is the message and global village. Now, artificial intelligence is already everywhere in the year 2020. What, according to you, will be the next level medium of communication?
See, at one level, I think the medium has never changed. as far as advertising is concerned, which is to be in people's conversations. That's the ultimate medium, you know. And all other media are a means to getting to that medium, which is to be, spoken about. So therefore, yes, anything that will resonate with people. And what are people consuming today? It's in their hands and their mobile phones. So if you look at what digital has done, definitely compared to the other media of the past, you can see today that digital combines text, audio, video, photographs all at once and interactively. This is something very new for the world of media, something very new for, even Marshall McLuhan. So I would say that this, multimedia nature of the internet and of digital is something, and the fact that people can use these all of these simultaneously together to speak back to a brand is something which is very different from what has happened in the past. And therefore you see that again, agencies which had unbundled their offerings are now again, everything's converging again to be, an expert in all of these, which people are consuming and producing in themselves. So that's what I feel about media.
So, advertising has always been about connecting with consumers on their terms. And by now, it's entirely clear that those terms and conditions are changing at an unparalleled rate. How is technology extending the advertising and communication experience according to you?
Yeah, I mean, it is, if you look at it the other day, it was uncanny that I was on a WhatsApp chat and, I praised the Malayalis as a group in something I said. And the very next day, I began receiving ads, from Asianet and Asianet news feeds, and for to buy properties in Kerala. So someone's listening in to these conversations. So definitely, technology has moved to that point where it can pick up these cues and even direct ads to you depending on this. I don't know if that's a good thing, but this is already a reality today. There's of course a huge amount of then branded content. Of course, it's great, and augmented reality, virtual reality. There's that famous example of the Lockheed Martin school bus, in which school kids were taken around a city, but instead of through the windows they could see a Martian landscape complete with sound effects, etc. So it's a great tool to inspire the next generation of scientists and thinkers. So I think inspiration is something which, if you can do with the use of technology, that would be something great. You know? If you make things safer for people through technology, that would be great.
That's a noble thought and very well expressed. So while we are talking about technology, Ambrish, at Avantika University, we coined a term called as designeering, where our ideology or philosophy is blending the worlds of both design and engineering. Do you think that these two worlds are blending in your field and your process also, and how is it shaping your work at BBDO?
I think that it's a great philosophy because actually, these divisions are man-made, and that too recently. If you look at the time of the Renaissance, the work of which has very rarely been bettered even today after 500 years. I mean, these people were, polymaths. They were great. They were scientists, engineers, architects, painters. There was no division. So that's what, you know, these fields at the intersection of design and engineering and even other fields is where the action really is. So we will need people who are hybrids, who are capable of, making sense of the whole across horizontals. And therefore, designeering is a great concept and it's very much required in the technology age. And I think it'll be great to have people who can straddle these even more going forward.
Wow, thank you so much for validating that thought for us and our philosophy. Amrish, it was a great hosting you on Avantika Designeering series. I'm sure that our listeners who work either in the advertising industry or who are inspired to work in the advertising industry would definitely learn from this episode. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
You're welcome.
Hey there, we hope you enjoyed our show. Do write to us on ads@avantika.edu.in. We look forward to your opinions, feedbacks, and suggestions of speakers you would like us to host on this show. Do tune in our channel next week on Wednesday for a new story on Hubhopper or wherever you get your podcast from. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter.